What is crack-a-lackin'? Today we have a very special build because this is going to be the first time I'm doing a used build on the high end. And this is because of this right here, a 2080 Ti. I got this card for 800 Aussie dollars. Now the reason this card is actually a pretty good deal, at least in Australia, is because our graphics cards are being sold pretty much on the RTX 3000 line. A 3080, for example, is coming well over that MSRP a lot of the times. So something like this for 800 Aussie dollars actually marks pretty good performance on the high end. And of course, you can pick it up today. It's pretty much in stock. Then the next deal we've got up here is an X570 motherboard, Ryzen 7 3800 XT, and a D15 Noctua cooler. Now I got this on a deal for $450 because the person changed over to a 10900 KF. And when I asked them, why are you doing this? There's really no need to go from a 3800 XT to a 10900K. They told me they just want that little bit extra FPS. And of course, this is what happens if you can find people who are rich and they give away these parts for pretty cheap, or at least this case, a really good bargain, then you can really make some magical FPS happen of your own. Now for a power supply, I got this in a deal with 3 other power supplies for 200 Aussie dollars. This is an 850 watt, but it's also got 768 watts on the 12 volt rail. It's actually got quite a few 12 volt rails, 6 in total. Then for the last components here in the build, we've got here 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory and also a NVMe 1 terabyte. Now I did want to get these new because I didn't have much luck on the used market finding some higher speed DDR4 memory. Then lastly is the case, and you're probably wondering, why is there 2 cases on the desk here? And initially I was going to use this Avengers knockoff case. Well, it's actually called the Dark Avenger from Antec. And all I can think of when I look at this case is rolling some documentary voice and explaining the situation with it.
The Dark Avenger occasionally comes out of hiding to find its prey, the unsuspecting customer, with a quite not so unique power known in nature as knockoff. This power is seen in quite a few other species as well, namely brand names you've never heard of, though the Dark Avenger has to fear its arch nemesis, the real Avenger from Marvel, who could at any time invoke the power of copyright infringement, and with it only having 2 120mm fans inside, it may not be able to handle the heat, so to speak.
Though with that aside, let's build this thing up, and I'll also put the build tally and all the parts and how much they cost on the screen right now for you guys. But we'll also talk about whether or not it's a good option to go used right now on the high end of the market. So we've already got some bad news coming into this build, and that is the power supply that I thought was working actually doesn't work. It shorts out when I hook it up to a power supply tester. Now, I've already gone and given this thing a heap of cleaning, aka tech yes loving, and it still shorts out after I do that. So unfortunately, the one power supply we got was faulty, but we've got here now a Thermaltake Tough Power 775 watt, and this is going to do the job absolutely fine. It's ironically got the same amount of power on that 12 volt rail as the Cooler Master power supply did. And this one actually works when we hook it up to the power supply tester. Now, I would usually get angry that I got hosed, but in this case, the guy who dropped around the parts, he's been genuine so far. I've used a heap of other parts that I bought from him, and he did say to me, if you do come into a problem with any of these computer parts, just send me a message and he'll hook me up a refund. So we should be getting that $50 back. And I mean, he has had a good track record up until this point in time. So I'm not too worried about that. Had I met the guy down the gas station, for example, and that was the only part that I bought, then yes, I would be quite angry, but that's not the case this time around. But this power supply works, and let's continue this build. So this PC is all set up and running. However, I am a little bit worried about this exhaust fan. The airflow seems a little bit on the weak side. And since they were Molex connected fans, they're only going to run at this one speed. So although the noise is good, I am actually going to be a little bit worried about the upcoming temperature test. So if you guys like having a guess, then do place your guesses right now on whether you think this airflow is going to hold up or if it's going to fail with this 2080 Ti. But we're also in the BIOS, we just got to set up the XMP profiles, super important. So sometimes RAM manufacturers will put in two profiles with the same timings, and that's basically one for Intel, one for AMD, where some of the sub timings might actually be a little bit different, and that's just to ensure that it works on either platform. So I think we'll lock in profile 2 and then we'll be good to go. And after running Furmark on this system with the side panel on versus off, it's unfortunately pretty bad news for this bling bling case right here. And the reason being is that with the glass on, we got 85 degrees maximum on this 2080 Ti in a 26 degree ambient environment. Then once we took the glass off, same fan speeds, we got 77 degrees. But also on top of that, the clock speeds on the GPU were higher with the glass off. So that just really is a clean and simple test to know if the airflow is pretty crap. And in this case, it is pretty crap in this Silverstone Farah RGB case. And the thing is, I would buy a different case because at this price point, 109 Aussie dollars, which is what I paid for it, there are options out there for even where I live for 10 Aussie dollars cheaper that give better airflow. And for instance, I'm talking about the Gamdius Athena, which is one of the cases that I recently used in a video here on the channel. So this case here from Silverstone, unfortunately for me personally, it doesn't really make the cut, where I feel at this budget, you'd want something with decent airflow from the get-go, and you're just not getting it with these three Molex fans that don't have any individual RGB control either. So there's two things that aren't really going for this case at this price point, and I'm not going to sit here and bash the product, but I'm just going to simply not recommend it, and I'm not going to buy it again. So we're playing Baldur's Gate 3 up here at 1080p ultra settings, and we're averaging 111 FPS, which on a 2080 Ti for 1080p is not that great, but this game is really graphically intensive. And we can see here that the CPU is doing a pretty good job. It's clocking up to around 4.4 gigahertz, and this is on the Vulkan engine for this game. So they've decided to go with Vulkan. And you're probably wondering what I'm doing here, and this is because Baldur's Gate is actually still in early access. So it's really early in the development stage, and they've actually only released the beta to the public in the form of chapter 1. So what I'm doing is I've played through, well, I've actually finished chapter 1, but this is sort of like a side battle that I'm versing a dragon on, where it's kind of, I think it's bugged out. You're not meant to win this battle, but I don't know, like the game is very difficult to play. Like, you've got to use a variety of strategies, and you have to go through so many different positioning phases, and you probably, sometimes you'll be replaying the same battle like 5 or 6 times because it's that difficult to win. And this was one battle that I was fighting here against level 5 people, and I could only max out to level 4 in early access. And it's really, it's a blast to the past. Like, they've improved on Baldur's Gate 2 in so many ways, and the combat system's just phenomenal. So if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, you're absolutely gonna love Baldur's Gate 3, and I can't honestly wait until they finish the next few chapters. And at the moment, because I mean, you've got to pre-order it or pretty much buy it on early access on Steam, and that'll give you access to play the game. So this is kind of something cool here. The dragons just like, so it's, I mean, they're not, obviously they don't want to release a finished product when it's not finished. So for some reason the dragon's just like chilling here, and he doesn't have any loot. But this dude right here is, he's now freed from the place, but I guess he's something else is going on. But regardless, the PC is running absolutely fine. The FPS is really nice, and I've been playing this on my 4K OLED monitor, and the experience is just phenomenal. And this, for me, is what video games were. Like, it took this game to really bring me back into PC gaming and just realize what the newer titles, a lot of the newer titles are just going for quick, easy to play, and there's no difficulty, there's no challenging your brain. But this game just does, it challenges your brain in such a way that there's so many different spells and so many different ways battles can go down, and also the character customization. You can choose from so different, many different characters that you can really just make it a different sort of whole game, even if you decide to replay it. So I do remember and recall playing Baldur's Gate 2 over and over a few times, just making all these different classes. So this is early access, and I'm just blown away by it already, and I'm really looking forward to when they release the full version with all the classes unlocked and everything. So really good job from Larian Studios here. I'm sorry it's come out in like a used and new build, but this game is just, it's honestly probably even worth a video on its own. But the FPS is running absolutely fine, and we won this battle, which I didn't think I'd win, but we got there in the end. So right now we're not really playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We're actually playing what I would call Call of Duty Lucy in the Sky Zone. And it's just, I've never seen this before, where it's kind of like, it just looks so weird. I mean, the good thing is at least the FPS is absolutely okay. We're getting over 200 frames per second here on ultra settings at 1080p, like max settings, but these aren't clearly max settings. Something else is going on where I don't even know what is going on here. It's just really bizarre. I've never seen this the whole time I've been testing out this game. So I'm guessing I'd probably have to reinstall Call of Duty on a fresh install, because this is just like one of those things that happens with this game. But there was also another problem that happened, and that is the load screen took so long to initialize on this game. I was waiting just for like over a minute just to try and get into this practice battle royale, and then it sort of came straight to life, and this is what it came to life to, is this weird mode right here. And after all that testing, we now have the used and new parts coming together to make some really good FPS. As we saw in those 2 games that we just tested, it was very smooth FPS. But if there was 2 things in hindsight that I would change with this build, it would definitely be the case where we talked about getting something with better airflow for even $10 cheaper here in Australia. I'd definitely do that. And then for the graphics card, it's not that the Dual OC that we used here today is bad. And in fact, it's a really good price for what we're getting. But it's just that it is a flagship graphics card, or it was last year's or last generation's flagship GPU. And I do like graphics cards of this caliber to be running a little bit cooler, where in this case, literally, it was getting to about 80 degrees on the default fan profiles, whereas opposed to us testing it apples to apples with 100% fan speeds, it was still getting up to around 77 degrees. So this model in particular, it is a little bit lackluster for a 2080 Ti. I would like to see, me personally, I've used other GPUs, even the SG card that I got in my main rig, they like to sit in the 70 degree region, which I'm very comfortable with at 25 degrees C ambient. This one just creeping into that 80 degree level is a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you want to game on this thing 24 hours a day. Well, not 24 hours a day, but if you're gaming or you're doing hardcore gaming on this thing, having it at 80 degrees for all its life isn't that good, considering it's actually a big outlay of money to be spending on a graphics card in the first place. So those two things, the case and the GPU, besides those two things, I love everything else about this build. It's giving out really smooth FPS, it's quiet, and it does the job. Even the power supply, that one is passing the power supply tester absolutely fine. I had no hiccups whatsoever, besides that infinite loading screen in Call of Duty, which apparently is a well and wide known problem on the internet. But other than that, mixing new and used together, I've done this a few years ago. I got into a big phase where I was doing this a lot on the channel. It seems to be something that's going to be coming back again, where the market really is weird. That's the easiest way to describe it. RTX 30 series cards, they will be coming into stock. I mean, Nvidia wants to make money on these cards, but there's a supply problem at the moment. But when they come in stock, or if you can't wait until they come in stock, this is definitely a good option to consider, where you can get some extremely good raw numbers, but not break the bank so much. And you can find people who just want to get that latest and greatest stuff, or even if they want to prepare for that latest and greatest stuff, and they're impatient and they just want to sell it off on the used market for cheap. So me personally, I am keeping an eye out for bargains like this, and if they come up, then I'm definitely going to pick them up and make something of them, and as well as just checking out what you can get for the money. Where today's build came in with some really good price performance, considering it's a 2080 Ti, and that was never really a price performance graphics card to begin with. Other than that, something else that I checked out was the power consumption. It's running at about 420 watts from the wall. So that's decent, considering we've got an 8-core 16-threaded CPU in there, and we've also got a 2080 Ti. Now, in terms of the X570 board, that is a really good thing too, because it gives us the option in the future to upgrade to the latest and greatest Zen 3 CPUs when they come out too. But me personally, I am waiting out to see the gaming numbers and see how it compares to the other counterparts, especially those two CPUs that they did in their own benchmarking against the 10900K and the 3900X, for example. But until then, I think something like this is a very safe play. Well, I actually think anything on that regard is a safe play in the land of PC gaming if you can get it for a really good price. And in this case, we got both these components pretty much at half the MSRP of where you could go out and buy them for on the shelves. But at these prices, you can't lose. Like, literally. That's the third time I've said literally in this video, well, now fourth. Anyway, with that aside, if you guys enjoyed this video, then you know what to do. Also, let us know down below what you think of mixing new and used parts together. Do you think it's a new meta going forward? Where honestly, I think the used bargains are becoming less frequent because a lot more people are looking for them, and there's a lot of guys that are looking for them from a profitability standpoint, where they like putting rigs together and making money. And you've seen this even in the realm of new parts, and these guys are known as scalpers in the new parts, where they try and buy limited stock items from RTX 3080s to PS5s to Xbox Series X's, and then they try to resell them for a profit. So there is a lot more of that nowadays. I think it's actually at the peak. It's never been higher in the history of tech than it is right now. So if you do want to look for bargains, you do have to be very quick. Don't forget that. Though with that aside, do let us know your thoughts and opinions, just like this question of the day here, which comes from Varsha, and they ask, bro, what is the best i5 3rd gen 4GB RAM or i5 2nd gen 8GB of RAM? I would go for the 2nd gen with 8GB of RAM. If you had to choose between one of the two, 8GB of RAM is bare bones for gaming in my opinion, as opposed to 4GB of RAM. You just won't get a playable experience, even on games like CSGO, which you can run on potatoes. So 8GB of RAM, definitely in that scenario where the two i5s, the 3570 for example, 3rd gen, will perform a little bit better than a 2400, but at the same time, the 8GB of RAM is much more crucial in this regard. Hope that answers that question, and if you guys have stayed this far, then there's some options there for you too. And I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.